I just wanna get out of here.
On this episode of Suddenly Sing, we have an old friend of mine who looks particularly fresh. It is Toby Anstis.
And a very good friend of mine, relationship expert Rachel Gold.
Yeah, we're going to talk about everything from Crocs turning you off to being turned on in a candlelit bar.
Yes.
To mindfulness, to how not to care whether people like you or not.
All coming up on Suddenly Single.
Yeah. Just wanna get out of here.
Welcome to another episode of Suddenly Single. Siobhan, I'm particularly excited today because it's an old mucker of mine. Although he looks about 20 years younger, Toby Anstis, which
young.
I'm surprised
Everybody
is not
knows
Sir
who
Toby
Toby
Anstis
is.
or Toby Anstis MBE OBE, but we've known each other 30 years.
Long. Yeah, it's
gotta be.
something like that.
Well, we started back in the day when children's BBC was a thing, wasn't it?
Well,
You
yeah,
know?
I mean, because I was doing press, wasn't I? So I was there every after introducing the shows, and you were obviously on the biggest one, or one of the biggest ones.
Well, on Blue
Peter. So
Blue
we'd often see.
But you were doing Ozone, you were doing the Broom Cupboard, which your precursor to that was Philip Schofield.
Yeah.
How much fan mail did you two get back then?
Oh my
Well, he got
goodness.
How many
sackfuls more
girly
than I did.
letters?
So
He got sackfuls, old Tim over there, didn't you, Timo?
Only because I was writing to myself. The
come on.
children's presentation, Blue Peter had 8 people opening letters the whole time because Blue Peter
What,
would have
and
massive
replying as you?
competitions.
Yeah.
Well, no,
you've
but
broken hearts all over the world now.
Well, you'd have Scylla, who used to run the correspondence unit. Had a bit of a cheeky grin, and after a while. And you get, she said, and she'd tell you, obviously, you've got to sign all these things, as all the other presenters would be, as presenters on BBC. But then I said, come on, Scylla, there must be some interesting letters. And then the other letters would start to come through of...
You must have got all the photos,
I had
right?
one particularly.
You must have got some weird stuff sent through.
It was from a retired sergeant major.
Oh, dear.
Well, hold on. Retired sergeant major, and it was on one page, very brilliantly.
He appeals to the
beautifully
masses.
written. And he just said, "Dear Mr. Vincent, just to say I'm appreciating all the army films that you're doing at the moment. Fantastic achievements. Is it possible to get a signed photograph of yourself, possibly in the shower? Sergeant Tardada, possibly in the shower." You're like, oh, yeah.
Oh, my.
I had it framed for a couple of years in my kitchen. Possibly in the shower.
Because, I mean, back then, and the younger generation wouldn't understand, but people would send you letters. When we started out in telly, there was it was very exciting when you're 21. I didn't just come out of university. I just done a psychology degree. Ended up in a broom cupboard with a puppet. That wasn't necessarily the plan. Toby, BSc, broom cupboard puppet,
You're lecturers.
I'd done a psychology degree, I should have worked it out, shouldn't I? But that was never the plan. But when you then get this mad opportunity, and it just was a whirlwind. Before I knew it, I was going off to interview INXS in Rome.
Yeah,
I was
amazing.
going Janet Jackson. I was off to America to interview Radiohead. So it was. We were going everywhere.
Yeah.
Now that not only takes up all your time,
Which it does,
then you're
yeah.
on telly every day as well. Life is very exciting. You go out to parties. You're going out and meeting people. So certainly the 20s was a no. You were. I wasn't really dating properly. You were meeting people and working and just getting caught. It's a brilliant times.
Yeah.
And then then your 30s and then it just continued. Nothing ever really stopped, and I'm very grateful for that. That I've never not worked.
Yeah.
And if it hasn't been when the telly quietened down a bit, then I was in doing the radio, and then that is 5 or 6 days a week, and then you're DJing, and so to have the room to allow a nice, comfortable, happy relationship to develop is difficult from a time point of view. But then amongst all that, my twin sister, and we're very, very close. She's got 3 lovely
Kate?
young kids, Kate, yeah. And she always said, look, Tobe, you have such a nice life. If you don't have any kids, these are your kids anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, they called me Dunkle Oby, dad stroke uncle, which my brother was like, that's how close we are.
Dunkle Oby.
That's amazing.
And they are. My
That's
little
lovely.
princess is Bella and Poppy, and then I've got 11, and Rocco's now 16, I can't believe, and 6 foot.
Wow.
Tall as uncle,
Wow.
almost. So, when you've got that, life's been pretty good.
Yeah.
You can have the fun because
Best of both
people I
worlds.
know who have kids don't necessarily have the best time. It's
Especially when you've
it's
got
hard work, and so I feel parents have it, especially these days as well. There's a lot of pressures with social media. You'll know as a dad. All of that going on. Life was much more simple when we were kids.
Yeah.
So if you're a
completely.
parent now to kids, you know, again, that's why a lot of people, a lot of women and men are deciding not to have children. You know, you can meet people now who might have children, for example, young children, but that's quite a lot to take on. You've got to decide if you want to do that. And it wouldn't be fair to start going down that lane, getting serious when really you're not sure. It's not fair on them, and it's not fair on you, is it, or anything?
Yeah.
So the landscape has changed so much.
Yeah.
And you can't go out. People don't go out to bars anymore to chat and...
That's what we say.
That's exactly what I was going to say to you. Where do you meet people?
Well, you have to go on apps. I mean, everyone's
you
on
do
apps.
go
You
on
read about
apps.
them in the paper every day,
You
don't
do.
you?
Yeah.
I've tried, but I sometimes forget I'm even on it. So I've had the last few weeks, I've been mega busy. So I've been trying to meet up with someone and haven't got... We just go and say, oh, I'm so sorry. I've got to go and do a gig in Leeds like last weekend. It just came up.
Yeah.
So I'll go and do that.
Well, that's the other thing. You've got to have an understanding person.
Money.
You have got to have an understanding person.
Yeah.
really have.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to date someone who's...
Yeah. I had
Because it's
somebody
quite
text me
sporadic,
like
isn't
that.
it?
Yeah, and also things change.
Work.
And somebody, I think I'm your priority. And I said, well, no, you're not my priority, but I would like to see you, but I can't do Fridays agreed.
Yeah.
Because something else has happened. And people have to take that on board if you're going to date somebody.
Well, and
else.
I think you always know as well. I think if you meet someone, as long as you're clear and quite vocal about that and say, look, you're really great, but I have got these things coming up and blah, blah, blah.
And things
Because, you know,
change.
because when you meet someone, if you met someone on an app, and then you meet, well, you might have a million things in your diary all coming up for the next 2 months.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
might.
Yeah.
So to find it and to get time to spend together is tough. But also, but I also think if somebody is a bit objectional about that early doors, red flags.
Yeah.
So you learn to pick up those things.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
you know, if you put yourself on an app, it's like putting yourself out on Instagram.
What do you, what's
You know, the
your-
whole world, there are lots and lots of people on these things.
Yeah, who can all
And you
comment.
don't know who they are.
Do you ever have people
Really?
sliding into your DMs? That's been very popular. Who had a lot of... Richard Blackwood.
Oh, yes, he did.
Found the love of his life by her.
He slid in with
Like-
her DM, though, didn't he?
But she'd liked something that he posted, and that was it. And living together and super happy.
Really?
Yeah.
From a DM?
He
Yes.
DM'd her because she liked something that he'd done, and he said she was pretty, and that was that.
Well, the last person I DM was Ainsley Harriott, actually, but that wasn't for a
I'm not
date.
sure
I've
if
got to
you're-
point out right now.
At least you know he could cook.
If you go on a Hard Dance interview, it's very funny. You'll see why I was
really?
trying to reach you out to Ainsley.
Right.
Harriott. Anyway.
Oh, Harriott. I thought...
No, Ainsley Harriott. It's
Oh,
to do
right.
with the dance tune. But
Okay.
anyway, it's quite funny. Blah, blah. But no, I haven't any DMs, so what am I doing wrong?
Well, maybe... Well, no, you've got to DM them. You've got to be proactive
That's what
about it. That's what Richard did.
He
Did it?
DM'd
She
her.
liked something, and he went, oh, she's really nice, and then DM'd her, and that's how it started. And then
is
I've been
that what-
dating.
Yeah, but I'd be a little bit, and good for him, I'd be a little bit worried that it might look like I'm intruding or, hang on, who's that guy off the radio, DMing me? It's a bit forward. I don't know, is a dating app a little bit more of a level?
Yeah,
I think you've got to be multi-level on these approaches
Have you?
now. You can't just be in one dating app. What kind of apps do you go on, and what kind of search engines do you use? Is there an age group, age range, geographically how far you're happy to travel for a snog?
I mean, I think geographical is a big deal.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to be able to, you've got to be in touching distance, really, haven't you?
Yeah.
You know, you don't
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
be, so if you make it 150 miles
Oh, God.
on top of your own
Still,
lifestyle,
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
how's
yeah.
that going to work?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
generally,
never.
generally in sort of London.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the trouble is, I forget that I'm even on it sometimes. So you start chatting to people
Yeah.
and then you forget.
Yeah,
You're on
yeah.
there and they say, all right then,
Yeah.
you know, thanks for the reply and all that. I'm so sorry, I've been on it for a
But
while.
what about clubs? Because you are a DJ, you do live clubs, you do live
Yeah.
sets. Surely that's the main
Oh,
man.
yeah,
that
but
you're
no.
controlling the whole floor. Everybody's looking at you for hours. It must be at the end.
No, people often say, if I've met someone on it, and they'll go, well, why are you on this app? You must meet loads of women being a
Yeah.
DJ. I'm like, no, I don't meet them. I see them.
Yeah.
And they're behind a barrier down there and I'm DJing and there might be 1,000 people
Yeah.
or whatever. We're all having a great time and
Yeah.
you're part of that experience and
Yeah.
you might have to, spend half an hour, 40 minutes having selfies and having chats with them.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. And I'm cool with that. And then you're off.
Yeah.
No, you're kind of amongst them. You're chatting up 1,000 women.
Yeah.
Or whatever, are you?
Yeah.
So it's I get that perception.
Yeah. So where do you
But then,
meet
but
them?
if you meet somebody attractive, I'd say the same thing straight back at them. So, but you're good. You must meet loads of men.
Yeah.
I go to bed at 8:30 in the week.
Yeah, well, that's
I don't have a
the thing.
drink in the week. I'm up to do a breakfast show. I do 2 shows on Friday. I'm often away gigging on a Saturday. I go back till a Sunday. And I'm back into the high cycle of work.
Yeah,
So if I am free on a Saturday night, you know, which is quite rare.
Yeah.
Then, you know, you hope that you're going to... That's the other thing, isn't it? I mean, when you've got not much time, if you meet someone and you've only met them on an app and you don't know much about them, it can go either two ways, can't it?
Yeah.
It can work out, they're really nice, or it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And
It's
you
quite
could have
intense.
wasted the one night you get free.
Well,
Well,
that is
Tim's
the
got a
thing.
new theory on this.
I?
I did try it. Well, no, you stopped. Well, you didn't stop me having dinner, but my first couple of updates were dinners. Oh, you know, within 5 minutes, and you said to me you should only do one drink or one coffee and make that really clear before you go, and that is good advice.
I think so.
It is
Having dinner,
because you know. I mean,
Oh my God.
honestly,
yeah.
Drown
because you
yourself
know
in some
already. Can I?
Well, we've all been in those
Yeah.
bad
Have you ever had to
situations.
do the plan B? So you've
What's
actually
that?
been on
Get
a date.
someone to ring you?
Well, you've been on a date. Yeah, you've been on a date and it's not working out.
Yeah.
You're like, oh God, please, I've got to get out of this. Quick,
Yeah.
jump out.
Yeah,
So you get somebody to
absolutely.
call you. Have you done
I've never
that?
had the calling, but I've gone through the
me.
dinner very quickly, and it was in King's Cross. And when I got
Yeah.
out, I hailed a black cab where I could have got a train, a tube, or walked, or a bus. And I still went get the cab to get out of here.
That's brilliant. But you go to somewhere where there's multiple
Yeah.
transport get outs, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What would be the ideal? Because you've if you Google you've had some high profile dates, including Priscilla Presley. Was
yeah,
that
but no, we can put the record. I mean, they're not dates. I mean, that whole thing, which got completely out of hand, you know, and it's a long time ago now, but that was just via a friend of mine who knew Warwick Davis, who was in the Panto at Wimbledon.
Oh, yeah,
and that,
Warwick.
lovely
Yeah.
Warwick. And
Yeah.
that was where, so we went to see him actually.
Yeah.
And then somebody said, to me and a friend of mine, do you want to come and see Priscilla?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, it's Elvis's
Yeah,
wife,
of
you know.
course.
Well, yes, that'd be nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Went and saw her. And then I jokingly said to her, God, it must be quite lonely you being here. Do you know that many people? Not really. I said, well, let's all go and have dinner one night. She went, oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm like,
fantastic.
well, I wasn't didn't really mean it.
Yeah.
And then we all went out.
Yeah.
2 nights later, and then it was just brilliant, lovely, friendly dinner. And then at the end of it, Priscilla, I said I can see some paps outside, so we shouldn't go out right now. And she said, no, come on, let's go. Like that.
fantastic.
So we went out there, and then she just gave me a little kiss on the cheek and got in her car and went home. That was it.
Your phone must have been
That
going
was
mad
it.
the next.
That was it.
Yeah.
It was just a really lovely evening.
Yeah.
Then we all went out again somewhere about 2 weeks later. But again, that was quite an early night.
Yeah.
And nothing went on.
Yeah.
At all. But of course, the way they pictured it and everything,
Yeah.
it
That
did
was
go
it.
a bit bloody bonkers.
Yeah.
And the next day, my
Yeah.
manager phoning saying, Toby, have you seen the papers?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to. Okay.
And that
It
was
was all over it. But it looked like, and then there were, there were chat shows in America saying, Toby, will you come over and be interviewed? And I'm like, no.
Really?
The incredible thing about that was actually sitting with Priscilla and talking to us about Elvis and their life in Graceland and things and stuff like that. And that was when you have I had a bit of an out of body experience thinking from
Yeah.
oh my God, hang on, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And with Priscilla, she's talking about this
the king.
legend, the king. That's pretty mental.
Yeah.
So think out of that. And we all have, life is full of experiences, isn't it? You've had them.
Yeah.
I count myself lucky to have met her.
Yeah.
And had dinner with someone like that because she's actually a charming, lovely woman.
Yeah.
That was that.
Yeah.
So there was that wasn't a high profile date. It was a...
Damn. You're very close to your sister, twin sister.
Yeah.
Adopted.
We're adopted, yeah.
So
Yeah.
super close together. What does she say to you about your dating pattern? Or does she go, come on, bro,
Oh,
you gotta
she's
get this
been-
right? Or she always thinks that you're right and do exactly what you're doing?
Well, she's been there for me for a couple of pretty bad relationships.
Right.
And I've met a couple of not particularly nice people.
Did she know at
And-
the time?
She knew fairly soon with things when I would ring her and say, how you doing, Tobe? I'm like, oh no, well, she did this or said that. Okay, do you think you should be with this person? Probably not, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and she was
You
right.
know, and she was absolutely right.
Yeah.
You know, we're very, very close. We're intuitive about each other. And I think with the adoption thing as well, that plays into, you know, needing each other's security and stuff because, you know, we've had all sorts of
Ups and
emotions
downs.
to go through over
Yeah,
our lives
yeah.
with that.
Do you think that
and the
impacts on your
psychological
dating
impact.
then?
Yeah, maybe. Well, maybe not so much with dating. I think more with the relationships that I've got myself into. And I'm very happy to talk about this now. And I couldn't have talked about adoption for most of my life because I was embarrassed about it. And I couldn't, and I would get myself into, my sister could.
Yeah.
I found it really hard to do it.
Yeah.
For whatever reasons. But I ended up getting into a bit of a pattern, which I'm not in now. And I met a couple of people, sort of back-to-back relationships, who had similar traits, who, because of adoption and not having done enough therapy, and I still had self-esteem issues and stuff. And that's a nightmare if somebody comes along and thinks, oh, he's a nice guy, or I can control someone like that, because he hasn't got enough pride in himself to look after himself. And they see...
It's
do you know
ironic
what I mean?
with a lot of entertainers,
And you
because
get
you
that.
are trying to make up for something.
Yeah, and also a lot of us are fixers. I'm a right fixer.
Yeah.
You know, and you start going out and you start these kind of things happening. They say things to you or start doing not such nice things. You think, this doesn't feel great.
Do you...
And then you kind of, you have to, you realise that adoption for me was part of those issues, which were getting me into relationships where I was putting up with. And you know, your therapist will say, well, why Toby, do you put up with that?
Yeah.
And you have to go all the way back and look at what you did as a kid, and the scar that there must be from your mum walking away from you after whatever, giving up, all of that sort of stuff. But it's lovely now to be able to talk about it, because I'd never been able to talk like this.
You've obviously done a lot of work.
I feel quite pleased with myself that I can do this.
What is the longest relationship you've ever been in? How long?
2.5 years.
2.5.
And that was a really... I look back now and... Well, no, I wouldn't say... People say, oh, is that the one that got away? Not really, no, because she's very happily married and got 3 lovely kids. And there were all sorts of... Without going into it here, but there was... I think that would have been the... And it almost was somebody I probably was going to marry.
Okay.
And I was sort of planning in my head when I would propose.
God. Oh, wow.
And then I did... then it all went a bit...
Yeah, okay.
I didn't know I'm a celebrity, blah, 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 blah. And then all sorts of stuff came.
That was unfortunate, because you came across really well on that.
Oh, yeah, well, that was a...
What was that, 2006, 7?
Yeah, 6.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
So you did it right at the ground zero.
It was fairly soon in. I don't know, whatever.
Have you done
who
any of the
cares?
dating shows?
No, I don't think...
dating, or... Would
I've
you
been
do it?
I have been asked.
Yeah, and? You wouldn't...
No.
Why?
Because I think I'd rather keep that my personal life, actually.
Personal.
I don't think I'd want to go and do that.
You were happy to eat testicles live on air, but you don't want to...
Well, I didn't have to do that. I was in there long enough to do
Not
that
go to
eating
Fred's
challenge, mate. I was out.
You were literally in and out.
I was
oh
out.
my God,
No,
that's
I was in
definitely the way to do it.
No, if you're still in there for 2 weeks, even if you're first out. But I do anything like, I think now, I mean, I'm not, I don't know how you feel, but I'm very I feel very grateful and just happy now in life.
Yeah.
That, you know, I'm not at the point where I have to meet someone.
Yeah.
I don't have to get a relationship. I feel lucky that I don't feel the pressures that you have in your 20s and 30s with work.
Yeah.
When's the next bit of work going to come along? So I've been doing it long enough now. I've got myself in a fairly strong position. And emotionally, I've done a lot of therapy. You know, a lot of work on myself. And so got to self where I feel I'm actually in quite a good place now. So I think that I wouldn't want to throw my vulnerability out there on a dating show necessarily.
Right.
And I can talk here amongst ourselves. Yeah. But to be filmed going through all of that and
I see,
how they make you out to be and how you make them out and having to narrate your way through that.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that when you're on an app.
Yeah.
But to go public with all of that chat, I'm not sure.
Have you ever been catfished on an app? Where the person turns up and you think, actually, those photographs are from 1943, and or you're from 1943, and you're looking like you're.
Now, people saying that about me. I get people saying. I've had quite a few people saying, "You're a catfish. What the hell do you think you're doing on here?"
I think
people get quite angry about it because they say, "Oh, I hope Toby knows you nicked his photos."
I've had that.
He's had this.
I've had that.
It's like we're all.
He's
It doesn't matter what
impersonating
you do
himself.
for a living. We're all allowed to try and find an amazing person. And if you're going to do that through an app, and it takes a bit of time meeting different people, you know, as you'd say as a woman, you kiss them frogs, find a prince, whatever it is, whatever the equivalent of that is, that's fine. But we're all allowed to be out there.
I think
It doesn't matter that whether you're a nurse or a presenter.
Right across the board.
Doesn't matter.
We're all entitled to love.
People shouldn't feel objectionable towards people that have got a profile. Like, what are you doing trying to get a date on here?
Well, while you were
doing?
talking, it reminded me of when they, a couple of years ago, only about 18 months ago, and you're directly involved in this, and I think I can get away with a lot of stuff in the future.
All right, go on.
There was a Mamma Mia party at the O2, you know, where they do this interactive...
Yeah, I definitely wasn't at that.
Well, you say that, and there was a press thing night, red carpet, and I got invited, and I took a friend of mine, Richard Wolf, you might know.
God, yeah,
yeah.
no,
So
yes.
Richard was my plus one, and we got to the bar.
I bet you
beforehand
loved
for a
that, didn't
drink.
you, Wolfie?
So we went for a drink, and I could see this couple looking over at me before going, and it wasn't part of the main bit, it was just this open public bar.
Yeah.
And I thought, they're going to come over and say something. So I could see them coming across, and eventually I said, excuse me, I'm sorry to bother. I go, yes. It is Toby Anstis, isn't it?
No.
To me, Richard Wolf spat his gin and
I
tonic
bet he
out,
did.
right? But on the same night, I then took him
joking?
to and I showed our VIP things to get to the carpet. Said, go through there and they'll take you to your table. And the woman looked at us and she went, right, looked at me and she went, all right with stairs? And I thought, I'm not 98. It's not last of the summer wine. All right with stairs. So I'm thinking...
a right good night, weren't you, Timo?
Well, Richard was hilarious.
You were
He thought it was
the
a
night
bit-
of your life.
But I think going forward,
Yes.
I can go on some dates, act really badly, and just say I'm Toby Anstis. I can get away with it.
Yes. I get that with Ben Shephard.
Do you?
There was a thing
I
that
can
came
see
out.
that,
People
actually.
say, I've gone to places, say, oh yeah, in you go, Ben. But he's had that. He's had people
Yes.
Really?
saying, oh yeah, hi Toby, how you doing? So, because we both got in touch about it. And I think it was mentioned, I think he mentioned it on telly one day about 2 or 3 years
Really?
ago. I'm like, I'd take that as a compliment.
Yeah, fantastic.
Well, if I look like Tim or Ben, I'm happy with
well,
that.
there we go. I have
Yeah.
to ask a well-known DJ, what kind of music do you play
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you want to get somebody in the mood, or you're in the mood at home?
I don't
where's your
do
go-
that.
Oh, come
no,
on.
no.
Come on.
No,
listen.
Never
bit
had
of
someone
Prince.
like yours
Listen,
for
no,
dinner.
I'm so not in for this. Oh, you got to have a bit of Barry White if you want to make love.
Yeah.
No chance. And when I
dinner
put a
party.
Barry White record on, when I'm getting naked with someone, that ain't happening.
Oh, I don't-
And
For the first 30 seconds.
I'm not into having that music going on or whatever.
Really?
No
I like it
music.
to organically happen. If somebody, if somebody's back home with me, for example, I'll put on some dance music, some Head Candy or some
Yeah.
house music, and
Yeah.
have a party. That's it's not about going.
It's not very romantic
I'm not
house
into lighting
music.
candles, putting on Mariah Carey and all that stuff. I'd go back and just enjoy. Have a good time.
That's an honest answer.
See what
That is
happens. It
honest.
is. I would never do the whole got a soundtrack tonight, baby. With got a few tunes here. You know what I mean?
Neighbours. Barry's on again. Barry's on. He's got a Saturday night off.
Yeah.
Right, we have an expert that we would like to invite in.
Just wanna get out of
So we got
here.
back today. Rachel Gold, my friend for a long time, used to be my stylist, but she's retrained as a mind and wellness therapist, haven't you?
I'm a
Yeah.
mindfulness meditation coach.
And you were listening in.
And I was listening in and observing.
Were you?
Yes.
It sounds to me like
What
Toby's
body
done a
language
lot
that
of his
was,
work, a lot
Sorry.
more work than most people have done on themselves.
Yeah, yeah, he has done a lot of work. What I found quite interesting, you probably know about this, but mindfulness is very much about being in the moment rather than predicting into the future or ruminating about the past. And it's also a way of accepting ourselves and not worrying about what other people think about us. And what I noticed with you, if you don't mind me saying,
Yeah.
what I noticed is I think that you're a very kind person, but I got the impression that you worry quite a lot about what people think about you. Is that true?
Yeah, I think it is, and I don't think that's by accident. I think
Yeah.
when you're adopted,
Yeah.
you spend. I think Kate would say the same, my sister. But I spent so much of my childhood needing to try and belong in this nest that didn't feel necessarily
Yeah.
home,
Yeah.
or didn't. It just felt
Yes.
a little bit genetically
Yeah.
completely different,
Yeah.
and just a little bit uncomfortable. And so when you realise that and you feel different, you do everything you can. It's like a
Yeah,
cuckoo's
to
nest.
fit in.
You have
Yeah.
to stay. You have to do whatever you can to make those people looking at you
Accept you.
be
Yeah.
positive,
Yeah, so
and
you can
it's-
become part of that.
Exactly. So I don't think there's any accident that I do worry about what people
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Because of
Yeah.
that.
And it's always so interesting because obviously with mindfulness, we are concentrating very much on being kind to ourselves and being accepting of whatever comes up. So even if you actually feel something, we're not saying, oh, you don't feel that anymore, just to become aware of it. And also the idea or the concept of someone else thinking something and you being able to decide what they think about you. That's quite an interesting thing because obviously we have no control over what anyone else thinks about us. We have no control over that.
No.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So if someone's thinking something about you, you can't make them think something different by behaving differently even. Obviously as a child, that's completely different but as an adult. So if we can get to an acceptance, a self-acceptance, then it feels so much more free because then if someone thinks about something about you or they say something about you, it should have no effect.
No, and I think in a relationship, I was in a
actually.
relationship once when I think I tried too hard.
Yeah.
Where I just, because I wasn't completely happy in myself.
Yeah.
One of the best things my therapist Jenny said 3 or 4 years ago, she died, God bless her. It was like losing a mum, basically.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd done so much.
God.
It really was.
Yes.
I was
Yeah,
so upset.
terrible,
Really, because
terrible.
we had such a
Yeah.
relationship. You do with her, you know, and
Of trust.
And she often said, she said, Tobes, you're okay.
Yeah, you're
as
okay
you are.
as you are, and that's really important.
Just be,
Really
you're
important.
okay, just you,
Yeah.
as you,
Yeah.
with nothing else.
Yeah.
Stop trying to jump through hoops.
Yes. Yeah.
Stop trying to impress people because you feel
Yes.
you're not enough yourself.
Yeah.
So you've got to do these other things to change their opinion of you.
Yeah,
to what you
totally.
say.
That's what we
so
were
that's
doing.
why you've got to do
Resonate
that
with you
work
then.
Yeah, you have
massively.
to do the work,
What
you're right.
Rachel says massively does. But you've got to do the work. But when I say work, that sounds painful.
I think it is
work
work,
sounds like,
though.
God, I've got to go and do the work. I couldn't wait to go
It's a
and
bit
do
like
it.
that in a way.
I couldn't wait
Yeah.
to see my therapist every week. I needed to go and do it. I'd identified that a bit like you would, you know, if you want to sort your body out for the summer, you go, okay, go to that PT for 6 months and then I'll be in a good place. And I thought in my head, I need to go and work this out
Yeah.
because there's anger
Yeah.
about being given all sorts of things going on here. And it's not good. It's not good news, you know,
Yeah.
in
And
any
it's a
situation.
What can somebody do that hears all those valid points, but day to day after you've cleaned your teeth in the morning, what's the first thing you can do to make that work?
I think one of the first things is that we have to realise that we have over 60,000 thoughts a day, every single day. And apparently 75% of them are negative. And 80% of those are repetitive. So if we can just stop and know that actually there's a lot of chatter going on, and actually a lot of that chatter is not real.
Yeah.
It's just your brain telling you lots and lots of different things. It's like a brain drain from the past. It's your brain predicting into the future, not being solid and grounded and balanced. Literally just stopping, taking some deep breaths and trying to get into the moment rather than being far into the future or behind, just being in the moment. It sounds so easy, but actually the more you practice it, it does work, doesn't it?
Yeah,
When you
it does
reset.
work. Like I love having a bath
Right.
with a candle.
Nice.
And the window open and all the lights turned out in the house. Just
Sorry.
and no Barry White, by the way.
I
Hey,
think a Barry
baby,
White
there's
would
room in the bath for
complete
two.
itself.
No, but I love that's my meditation. Just lying in a bath, having all the quiet and the smell of a scented candle and dealing with the silence.
Yes. Yeah.
Actually, you can hear silence. I know it
Yes.
sounds
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah,
no, I know.
And when
Yeah.
that starts enveloping you, you go
Yes.
into another space,
Yeah,
which must be kind of
completely.
meditational.
Yes,
And then
yeah.
that can be really therapeutic.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
better for that the next day.
Yeah. Well, the breath is the really important thing. If you can stop and breathe, if you can breathe through your nose, breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your mouth, it automatically brings your heart rate down for a start and brings your circulation down. So you're not quite so pacey
Fidgety.
and racing.
Yeah.
Just wanna get out of here.
This is the Goldfish bowl of truth.
Oh,
Who's picking?
crikey.
We both
Everybody
pick
takes one. Yeah,
Yes.
everybody takes
All
one.
right,
Rach.
thank you. All
It's
right,
not
okay.
taking your clothes off
Let's
or
have a
anything.
look.
We all answer all
There's
the
no
questions.
car keys.
There's no
Okay,
car
no
keys.
car keys. Right, let's have a look.
If you can't read it, it's my handwriting. Oh, no, it's not actually. This one isn't.
Ooh, okay.
The bad handwriting is.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. Well, guess first.
Okay, yes, if it's
Am I going
interesting,
first?
you go first.
Have you had any plastic surgery? And the question is no.
No.
And do you know what? I do get asked that because I think me and my twin sister were probably, our birth father, he's Italian, has actually got very nice Mediterranean complexion.
Yeah.
I think
Younger than
genetically,
your years.
genes play a part. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've not had any work done, and I feel
Your
grateful
olive
I haven't
skin.
done. And people say, yes, you have. I haven't.
Yeah, I know,
And nor has
no.
my sister who's got
Yeah.
a baby face.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
and
well,
I've
that's a double proof then, isn't it? Because you're
pretty
twins.
lucky. So
Yeah.
I've not had any work. Wouldn't say, never
No
say never.
Botox?
Well, I would say never.
No, nothing.
No, nothing.
Nothing.
You don't
Well,
have
Do you like
to.
facial?
Nothing at all.
Nothing at
I've
all.
had a facial, but not had. Not.
He has lots of deep baths with a scented candle.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
How much does dress sense matter when you're looking at a potential date?
That's to you.
To
It's
all
to
of
everyone,
us.
but you
Yeah,
go
yeah.
How much does
first.
dress sense matter?
Well, listen,
Now
if
let
somebody
me
turned
see.
up
You
with...
tell the truth
You always
according
dress well,
to me.
Timo.
Well,
You do,
yeah,
mate. You look good.
But it's how other people are dressed, and I think if somebody turned up in some Crocs, then I
Oh my
probably
God, that's
would have an
Crocs,
issue.
okay.
And you know, and
Crocs
somebody
and
that
socks.
hadn't, doesn't matter what the look is, but if it was just overly thrown together, they've just walked the dogs. No, you could have a,
Okay.
yeah. I've got a thing against Crocs.
Yeah.
I can tell.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I'm quite
definitely.
casual. I
Yeah.
quite like just. I always try. Well, because of my job, I live in t-shirts and jeans
Yeah.
and trainers.
But even
Yeah.
But I'd
that's
probably
not
make a bit
thought-
more of an
Even if
effort
they're
to
nice,
go
yeah,
out,
but even
put a
if they're
shirt on,
nice
like I have
t-shirt.
for your podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I never normally wear a shirt, but got it special and all that for the appointment. And I'd like someone at least.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to meet someone, I'd say, look, just don't worry about. Depending
Yeah,
where you're
yeah,
going,
yeah.
just wear what you want,
Yeah.
Yeah.
comfortably. If somebody asks and says, "Oh, where are we going? Do I need to?" I just wear what you want.
Yeah.
If you really, really
Yes.
fancy someone, right? But you didn't like the perfume, and that was what they always seem to wear. The
Yeah.
one thing.
I just
would
buy
you
it.
buy
You do.
them something
Yeah,
from
yeah.
duty? Would you? Would you?
Yeah,
Of course you
definitely.
should.
But
yes.
could you? What
Yes,
say? Would you mind
absolutely.
wearing that?
Yeah, yeah.
I have thought about that. But I don't know if I could do that.
I do that
Well,
with a
or you-
balaclava.
Or even if you just put you a lovely perfume.
Well,
Or-
but it's a bit.
or-
Yeah, but isn't that a bit
Or
obvious?
an aromatherapy.
We obviously don't know
oil
what I'm
or
wearing
something
then.
like
So
that.
let's start with.
Oh, no, perfume's a
No.
romantic gift.
Yeah, it's very romantic.
It's very
Yeah.
romantic.
Is it?
That's
Okay.
a nice gift
Yeah.
to give
That's
But
someone.
a nice gift.
and it's not a.
It doesn't matter if you like the
No.
smell. That's fine.
It's not. It's not a big hint that could be taken the wrong way.
Unless it's Dettol. Do you mind wearing this next time we come out? And no Crocs.
Mitchum. Antiperspirant.
Right, we done all our questions.
Oh, no, I've got a
right.
question here. What's
Come on,
that?
Rach.
Right. How important are looks to you?
Well, if you're on a dating app, it's everything, isn't it?
Thank you.
Sadly.
See, Toby said
Well, to
Sadly.
begin
Well,
with,
which is
to
sad,
begin
which is
with,
sad,
no, to
yes,
begin with,
yeah.
it is.
Because you can't,
Exactly,
because you
that's
can't
right.
judge
Afterwards.
on any other criteria when you're on an app.
But your first
But
reaction
is
is,
that.
do I find them
that's
attractive?
why it
They don't have to
doesn't
be...
work.
But then how do you know? Because it might be a
just on
bad
that look.
photo. I mean, I've
See
seen
how
some
difficult it is
photos
with
of
women.
people.
They agree with the smell, they agree with the Crocs, but when we say, actually, do you find them presentable, then it's...
Oh, come on, women are the
Salem
same
witch
as well. They
trial.
go through and say, oh, he's handsome, he's not, he's handsome, he's
Yeah, no,
handsome.
no, it's true.
Exactly.
But
I
we
mean,
do,
you
we
know,
do.
I mean,
We
and
do.
and often people don't want to divulge too much on the apps about themselves. So
Yeah.
all you've really got is a photo and then maybe a
you are
date,
swiping
and
on
then
the
you'll
photo.
find it.
I think this is more of interesting to the boys. Would you go out with someone 20 years older than you?
Ooh.
I would.
I would.
Ooh.
Yeah, I would. I'm not looking for kids.
I couldn't.
I wouldn't go
You said
with
I
some-
could.
Must be 900.
Oh, shut up. Rachel,
I
a
would
lovely
go out
glamorous
with-
woman. Shut up.
Thank
Right.
you, thanks so much.
But I would go out with somebody that's 20 years.
20 years?
Would
Yeah, as long as they
Oh,
don't
that's
look
interesting.
it.
The boys.
Well, just, yeah.
Well, look at Macron.
Oh, okay.
Emmanuel Macron's going
Yeah,
out with some.
exactly.
I mean, it does what I don't think
Right.
that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
Age
Yes.
gaps, isn't it?
Yeah.
Women or men, men or women, whatever. I had 20. I'd be. It just comes down to what they're like, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely.
You can't just say, you can't just base it on the fact it's 20 years. It completely depends on them, the way they look 20 years older
Yeah.
than
Yes.
you, or the way
More
they
than
are as a
yeah.
person,
Go
you
out
know?
with somebody that's 10, 15 years older than 10 to
Than
15 years
younger.
younger, definitely.
Oh, would you?
Definitely.
Oh, okay.
because
Oh,
you
that's
don't
Yeah,
interesting.
I think I'm the
That's
same as Tim. I
But
go with
also,
Tim on that.
That energy
Right.
of somebody that's 15, 20 years younger and their expectations and what they want to do is different. You just want somebody
Yeah.
that's a bit more chilled.
So
Yeah.
is
Yes.
children a no for you then? Because you've just said you'd rather go older.
What, having my own or accepting
Having
other
your
people
own.
with their
Having
own
your
kid,
own.
their kids, having my own
Having your
children.
own.
Well, I mean, I think now, I mean, I always said that it was never a case of I never wanted to, I don't want to ever be a dad.
Mm-hmm.
I was never that fervent about it. It wasn't black. It was just purely, that's nothing, luckily, nothing I've ever worried about.
Yeah.
I've never
Yeah.
felt I wanted to be a
because
dad.
you already had
Yeah.
your...
But I always said, well, if I really fell in love with someone,
Yeah.
and that was just a beautiful thing that came out of it,
Yeah.
then
That's fine.
I'd be there.
And on that note, though, I wouldn't rule it out then because you've still got that
listen,
chance.
you can't-
I was 45 when they had the,
never say never. But I mean,
Well, my granddad, Tim Vincent, was claiming his child allowance and pension at the same time. He was
your
60
granddad, what, Vincent? Vincent?
Yeah, well, he was Vincent. That's where I took my
Vincent
surname
Vincent.
from.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Right.
And he was
Okay.
61 when he had.
What's your real name? Is it a good Welsh name, Timo? Your real name?
Walker. No, not really.
No, not really.
Well, that's all right.
But there was already a Tim Walker in Equity at the time when we started out, so you had to have a different name.
Oh, yes.
Right.
And on that bombshell, thank you very much for coming in, Toby. I
pleasure.
think we'll have to have you on us again as a
Yes,
repeat.
definitely.
No, it's an absolute pleasure, honestly. It's been really, it's a nice space.
Yeah.
Come and
it's
chat in.
just across the road from you for your...
I know, I'm only over there.
Yeah,
Get you
fantastic.
to wander in.
Yeah.
Thank you both very
Fantastic.
much for coming
Thank
in
you.
and Pearls of
Thank
Wisdom.
you for
Join us
having
on the
us.
next Suddenly Single.
Coming up.